Hello, fellow true crime lovers. How are you guys doing today? I hope you guys are having a blessed and prosperous day or night, wherever it is that you are at. I hope you guys are staying hydrated if you are somewhere hot, because this is the summertime, so I hope you're staying cool and hydrated and all that stuff. And if you are a true crime lover such as myself, this is the channel for you. So yeah, let's get started on today's true crime case. So today's true crime, we are going to talk about this person here. Her name is Sarah Johnson. She was exactly 16 years old when she unalived her parents, Alan and Diane Johnson. Now, Sarah was your typical 16-year-old. She was a typical daddy's girl. She went to school, she played volleyball, and she was on the debate team, and she dreamed of one day becoming a teacher, right? And her parents did well at their jobs. Alan, he was part owner of a landscaping company, and Diane, she worked at a financial firm, okay? So yeah, they lived a typical normal life. They made pretty good money from their jobs. They was able to support Sarah. They also had another child. He was older. His name was Matt, and he was already away in college, living the college dream life or whatever. But yeah, everything was cool and normal for the Johnsons. They were well liked in the community. They were well active in their church. They were avid shooters. They went to the gun range and shoot and whatnot. They liked to throw parties, and Diane also, she loved to cook as well. So that was one of her favorite things to do when she's not working at her financial firm job, right? So yeah, everything was cool with the Johnsons, or so they thought. So Sarah ended up meeting this guy. His name was Bruno Santos. He was 19 years old, 3 years older than Sarah at the time. Her parents, of course, Alan and Diane, they did not approve of him, not just because of his age. It was because Bruno was a high school dropout, he sold drugs, and he was in a gang. Not someone you want your 16-year-old daughter to date, you know what I mean? But of course, Sarah was, she was smitten by Bruno. She was smitten by him, and I believe he might have been her first boyfriend at that, right? But of course, Alan and Diane, of course, they didn't want their daughter with this man. He wasn't doing anything with his life. I would like to think as well, had Bruno was going to college and trying to do something with his life, they probably would have overlooked that age gap between him and Sarah, you know what I mean? But because he wasn't doing nothing with his life, yeah, I'll be like, nah, you can't be with this dude. Like, he's not good for you, anything like that. Now, mind you guys, Sarah played volleyball too. And according to a few of her friends that played volleyball with her, they all said the same thing about Bruno. He wasn't good for her. Sarah came from this good family with good values, and Bruno, Bruno also, mind you, he was an immigrant from Mexico, right? He came up here with his mom and his family and things like that illegally, right? So I just wanted to add that on as part of the story, right? But anyway, according to also Sarah's friends, they also said that Sarah was flaunting her so-called engagement ring, talking about, yeah, me and Bruno were engaged, proposed to me, of course I said yes, blah, 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 we're gonna get married, we're gonna live this lovely lifestyle and whatnot. But of course her friends was like, girl, you are 16 years old, you should not be thinking about getting married, especially at this age. You should be living your life, being a kid. You ain't got no responsibilities like that. Girl, because like I said, they saw Bruno too as no good, right? So they was trying to look out for Sarah because that's supposed to be their friend. But once again, Sarah was not trying to hear what her friends had to say or what her parents had to say. None of that. So around Labor Day weekend, okay, two of Sarah's relatives were staying with her and her parents for that Labor Day weekend, right? But of course, she told her parents that she would not be staying at home. She will be staying at a girlfriend's house, all that stuff, But of course, she wasn't staying at that girlfriend's house. No. So yeah, Alan called her friend, that her supposed friend that she was supposed to be staying with the next morning to check in on things. And of course her friend told Alan like, hey, nah, Sarah's not here. She didn't even spend a night here. So of course Alan put two and two together and told his wife Diane like, yes, Sarah is at Bruno's house because I just got off the phone with her friend. Her friend says she's not there, right? So mind you, they had the two relatives. Alan's brother-in-law, Jim Vavel, went with Alan to Bruno's house to get Sarah, right? So of course they get there and Alan told Bruno like, hey, you need to stay away from my daughter or I will have you in jail for statutory rape, okay? And of course Sarah was upset like that she, that she got caught, of course, you know what I mean? Because, she lied to her parents, things like that. So of course Sarah gets home and both her parents told her like, hey, you are grounded, you disobeyed us, you lied to us, and you really spent the night at some boy's house, whether he's your boyfriend or not. You know that how we feel about this guy, he's not good for you. So yeah, you're grounded, right? So of course Sarah played it cool, right? I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm grounded, woo, 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 right? So on the morning of September 2nd, 2003, that's when Sarah had it in her weird mind to unalive her parents, okay? So her parents has this guest house, which is adjacent to their house, and it was occupied by a friend of theirs. His name was Mel Spiegel. And Mel Spiegel, at the time, he was out of town in Boise, Idaho to visit some family, because mind you, this was Labor Day weekend, right? So Sarah knew that Mel had a few weapons there, if you know what I mean. So she retrieved this weapon and went back inside the house to her parents' bedroom. And her mom, Diane, was still asleep in the bed, and she pews her mom in the head, blowing her head off. Alan heard the gunshot, right? And he heard the gunshot, but I guess he didn't make it out on time or whatever. So while he was in the shower, Sarah goes into the guest bathroom where Alan was showering and pews him in the chest, right? Alan was so shocked, but he managed to get out the bathtub, stumble a little bit into the bedroom, and then he collapsed, right? And of course, Sarah played it cool and ran to her neighbor's house where her neighbor called 911. And it was a whole fiasco. So of course, Sarah's family got wind of what transpired. Now here's my question. The two relatives that was staying with Sarah and her parents, Jim Vavel and his wife Linda. Linda was Diane's sister, which makes her Sarah's aunt, right? I wonder, because mind you, they were staying with the Johnsons for Labor Day weekend. I wonder, were they there during that time, or were they? No, they can't be staying at the guest house because they would have heard Sarah come in the house. So I wonder if Linda and Jim were in the house when this occurred, or did they already leave? That was just my confusion right there. But anyway, the police were called, and they came to scope out the scene. And mind you, this was garbage day. This was trash day, right? Where like the garbage truck came in and collected trash, and of course Sarah put the trash out on the curb for the garbage people to get. But when the police got there, they told the garbage truck to go on and keep the trash there. And had they picked up that trash, nobody would have known who unalived Alan and Diane Johnson, right? So as this was occurring, when they were scoping out the scene and whatnot, Sarah really was acting weird, according to her family. When Alan and Diane came out in body bags, they were taking them out in body bags. Of course, Sarah was sitting there just chilling like she was at a dang football game, right? This was what one of her neighbors said when this occurred. And of course, her boyfriend Bruno came over there to check on things because I'm sure she called him and told him what was going on, right? And Sarah's grandmother has said that she was hugging her. Sarah was hugging her grandmother and patting her on the back, and she whispered to one of her friends, because when Bruno got there, right, the police immediately started questioning him because her other family members were telling the police that maybe Bruno was the one who did this, because nobody wanted to believe that Sarah did this, right? Because this was their family. They didn't think that Sarah would do this to her parents, right? So they automatically said, like, yeah, I think Bruno did it, because Bruno was pissed that, you know, Alan threatened him, mind you, threatened him to get her for statutory rape and threatened violence as well against Bruno. So they figured that Bruno retaliated by unaliving them. But they questioned Bruno, and he said that he was at home when this occurred. I don't know who did it, whatever, right? So then, as Sarah was hugging her grandmother, right, and Bruno was getting questioned, she whispered to one of her other friends, like, hey, why don't you go see if Bruno's okay, because I'm worried about him. And of course, everybody that heard her say that, like, they were shocked, like, why is you worried about your boyfriend? Your parents just got killed, got unalived. Why are you worried about your little boyfriend? You know what I mean? So once the police, they questioned Bruno and they questioned his whereabouts, they went to his family's house to question it, and they all confirmed that Bruno was there when this occurred, right? So of course, after, you know, they scope out the house and checked everything, that's when they checked the garbage can, right? And they found a pink bathrobe with blood on it, and they found a latex glove, and they found a leather glove, right? So they take it out for DNA to get the fingerprints that was inside both gloves, right? So they do that, and they do that, and then it comes back that the fingerprints that was inside both gloves, they match Sarah's. And of course, they had to go back and tell all the family members before they got to Sarah. They went to her grandparents, and because for the simple fact that Sarah's parents are now deceased, Sarah was living with her aunt and uncle, Linda and Jim, right? So they didn't want to believe that Sarah did this, right? So eventually they did take Sarah in for questioning, because they already questioned her before, right? When they first questioned her, right, they told her where was she at when this occurred. She claimed she was in her bedroom with the door closed. Now this is where this is why this is important, right? She claimed that she was in her bedroom with the doors closed, right? But the police caught her in the lie because some of the blood splatter got in her bedroom wall. So no way her bedroom door was closed when this occurred, when her parents got unalive, right? So they knew that she was lying on that part. So then they questioned her like, hey, but then when they brought her back in for questioning, once they got the DNA of her fingerprints matching what was inside the latex glove, and also let me mind y'all too, they found stray bullets inside the pocket of the pink bathrobe, right? So that was another thing, and the gunpowder residue and things like that. So all that matched Sarah, right? So then they bring back Sarah for questioning, right? And with all the evidence that they have, and like, hey, can you just fess up and admit that you did this? And of course, she swore up and down that she didn't do it. But once they present her with that evidence, right, they's like, okay, well, since you didn't want to be truthful, we have a warrant out for your arrest. So they arrested her right then and there, and it all went to trial. And they brought in her brother Matt to testify. They brought in her aunt Linda, her uncle Jim, and I think her grandparents. They all testified on her trial, and even Bruno, her boyfriend, he testified at her trial. Now here's the kicker though. Mind you guys, Bruno is from Mexico, right? This guy, I forgot to tell you guys that this guy could not speak a lick of English. So when he testified at her trial, he had to have an interpreter there. So I don't know how Sarah and this dude was able to talk. If y'all so-called dated, how was y'all able to communicate and dude couldn't speak a lick of English? Make that make sense, please. Can somebody help me make that make sense? Because I did all the research I possibly could, and it did not say that Sarah was fluent in Spanish. So that's just my take on that, right? So yeah, everybody testified and everything else like that. And of course, Sarah was found guilty for the unaliving of her parents, Alan and Diane Johnson. And of course, she made this speech about, oh, I love my parents, I love my family, and I'm grieving the loss of my parents, and blah, 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 right? Of course, you know, nobody in her family was buying it, because by this time, when she went for her sentencing, this is what she said when she made that little speech or whatever, right? When they went to her sentencing, right, they all peeped that she was just full of it. That she was, you know, even during her trial, she will look like she will cry and say all this stuff. She'll look like very scared and very helpless and whatnot, but then she'll act all like she had like this poker face. I don't know. But yeah, so yes, Sarah was found guilty and she was sentenced to 2 life consecutive sentences without the possibility of parole, right? But from what I gathered as well, she has filed several appeals, all got denied, and yeah, that's it. And Bruno eventually got arrested for possession of methamphetamines, and he got deported back to Mexico. So yeah, that was a big mess. So basically, all in all, Sarah did all this. She unalived her parents, she sacrificed all this all over a boy, all because her parents did not approve of her boyfriend. That's all why she did this, why she unalived her parents, because her parents grounded her, didn't want her with Bruno, and she thought by unaliving them that she could have her happily ever after with Bruno, and it didn't pan out that way. So moral of the story is, ain't no boy, man, or whatever have you is worth you unaliving your parents and going to jail. Because mind you, she was charged as an adult, but by the time she was found guilty and whatnot, she was already 18 years old, right? But yeah, like it just really occurs to me that the lengths that these little teenage girls, even boys, will go to just to get what they want. Because this is the only case where I saw a few cases similar to Sarah's about people unaliving their parents because they didn't like their boyfriend, you know, type of thing. So yeah, this was one of those cases. And to this very day, Sarah is still in jail serving her life sentence. Her brother Matt has said that he don't want nothing to do with her. And the interviewer was like, well, she's your sister though, blah, blah, blah. Typical, you know, well, that's still your sister. But Matt's like, well, hey, she unalived my parents. Therefore, I don't want nothing to do with her, right? And quite frankly, I don't blame dude. I do not blame him at all, because if that was my sibling and I know she unalived my parents, no, I wouldn't want nothing to do with her either. Because I think, mind you, that when her brother got interviewed, this was back in 2007, so maybe he probably finally did forgive her. Who knows? Who knows? And let me tell you something. My parents, specifically my father, did not like a few men that I've dated, but guess what? I didn't unalive him for that, because like I said, it's not that deep, it's not that serious. And I learned this too, like, if Sarah really wanted to be with that dude, she could have did what any other typical teenager little girl could have did, and that was just run away with him. If she really didn't want to be with dude that bad, she should have just ran away with him. I mean, that's what I would have did. That's exactly what I would have did. I mean, I'm not going to murk my parents because of that. That's, like I said, that ain't worth it. You know what I mean? That's just dumb. That's just dumb, stupid, idiotic-ish, you know? But that's just my take on it. You know what I'm saying? Because you only get one set of parents. And you know what? I wish that I had caring parents like Alan and Diane. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't come from good parents. And weirdly enough, I turned out okay. You know what I mean? I actually broke the cycle and became a better parent than my own parents. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's just my take on it. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about this case. And yeah, and we'll talk more. And there'll be more true crime cases to come on this channel. And be sure that you like this video, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And I'll talk to you guys later.